Hello there, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to build an amazing Telegram clone using Next.js and Express. And don't forget about TypeScript, because this project is entirely type safe. Let's see a little demo of what we are going to build. First, we have the login page and the avatar component. When we click on it, it regenerates and shows us a new avatar. Then we have the inputs of name and email. When we click on the login button, first we have a nice loading. Then we can see the users list. Let's do the same for the another socket tab in another browser, and you can see when we hit the login button, we got the Angelina on Realtime, and we can send a message to our user to send hello, and we can answer it, say hi, and we can send a message with emojis too. We have the emoji picker React package for this usage. We have the functionality to search through our users to choose the right one. And the cool part is when we can call our user. As you can see, Mike is calling Angelina, and Angelina can answer it by clicking on the phone button. Now let's dive into the code. First, let's create a new folder called Telegram clone. Then drag and drop it in VS Code and open up a new terminal. And we are going to create two folders called client and server. Then change direction to client folder, and we will create the Next.js app. So write npx create next app at latest. This will ensure that we are installing the latest version. We will use TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, source directory, and the new app router. Then let's clear out terminal and install Daisy UI. Daisy UI is a Tailwind plugin. When it has been installed, go to the tailwind.config.ts file and say require Daisy UI. Then we will install other dependencies. So in your terminal, write npm add formkit/autoanimate. We will use autoanimate to animate our messages. And we will use emoji picker React. Then we will install Lottie React to load our Lottie files, and we will use React cookie. And we will use socket.io client for real-time usages, and for state managing we will use Zustand. We will wait until the dependencies have been installed. Oops, we got an error. I think I misspelled something. Yep, emoji picker React, that's misspelled. Let's correct it. And now hit enter. And all the dependencies have been installed successfully. Let's clear the terminal out. And run npm run dev to run the dev environment on our localhost 3000. So when we open up localhost 3000, we should see the Next.js 13. Let's resize our pages so we can see both the code and browser tabs. Next, let's open up a new terminal, and we are changing direction to server folder. And we are going to say npm init-y to create a package.json file. Then we will install our needed dependencies. So in terminal, write npm express cores and .env mongoose and socket.io and JSON web token. Then clear the terminal, and we will install the types. So write npm -d add types/express ts node. TypeScript and nodemon. Next, change the test script to the dev, and for the command we will say nodemon index.ts. So in the server folder, create a new file called index.ts file. First we will import express from express. Then we will import .env/configs. Then import cores from cores, or first import HTTP from HTTP, then import cores from cores. And then let's initialize our app. Say const app equals express, and then write const server equals http.createServer, and as an argument pass it our express app. Then say const port equals process.env, or if we didn't have environment file, we will say it will be on port 4000. Create an environment file and set the port to 4000. Let's go back to the index file and let's define a middleware. Of course, write app.use cores. Now we will create a Node.js server.listen on port 4000, and we will log our localhost 4000. Now clear the terminal and write npm run dev, and if everything goes right, we should see http localhost 4000 in our console. Next, go to the client folder and in source folder we will add some folders like components, lib folder, and let's import the assets folder from our desktop. You can find the assets folder on the GitHub repository you find in the description section of this video. Let's create another folder called utils. Then create a new file in the source folder called types.d.ts. Then we will copy the types and paste them here. This is the most of the types we are going to use, and create a new file in the utils folder called icons.tsx. And copy and paste icons. Oops, I misspelled tsx. Copy and paste icons. Then we will go to the app folder and open up layout.tsx file. And we are going to change the title to chatbrand and change description to this is a Telegram clone. We don't need to change anything else in layout. Go to globals.css file and delete all the predefined classes. Then define body tag and set the overflow to hidden. And set another class name of background image, and background image URL is going to come from our assets folder. We have a main background there, so we will use it in our page.tsx file. Go to page.tsx file and delete all the things you see. Now create a new div and give it a class name of background image. Mean height of a screen and width of full. The display is going to be flex. Justify center, item center, because this is our login page. Then inside our div, create a new div with class name of card, width of 90% on small devices, on medium devices width of 2 out of 3, and on large devices we have width of 2 out of 5. And set the background base of 100 for it. And it will be rounded large. Create a new div inside that div, and our form component is going to be here. Then give the div class name of card body. Create a new folder called login page. create a new file in the login page called form.tsx file and write RFCE. Then let's import it in our page.tsx so we can see the changes. Let's head back to the form component and delete the predefined div, and now create a form tag, and first we will have the avatar component. Give the form class name of flex column, and gap of 5. We will go back to the avatar, but for now let's create the rest of the form. Inputs, create a div with class name of flex column. In xlarge we will give it a flex row and gap of 5. Then inside the div, create another div with class name of form control and width of full. Then create a new label and give it a class name of label. And inside the label, create a span and we will say what is your name. Give the span class name of label text, and text should be in large size. Create the input, bottom of the label, input type of text, give it a placeholder of username, and class name of input border, width of full, and it will be required. Let's copy and paste it to the bottom lines and change the label to put your email. Change the placeholder to the email and type to the email too. Next, we should create the avatar component. Create the avatar.tsx file and write RFC and import the avatar in the form component so we can see the changes. Go to the avatar.tsx file and create a new div, and inside the div we have another div, and inside that div we have the image component of Next.js. Give it a source attribute, and source will be https robohash.org/1.png. Then give it a width of 256, height of 256, alternative text of avatar. Now we should define our host name in our next config file. So set the image and domains and give it robohash.org as a valid domain name. Now it should be great. Run the dev server again because we have changes in our config, next config. And as you can see, we have the image now. Let's style it. Give the second div class name of width of 24, rounded full, and a ring primary. Ring offset base is going to be 100 and ring offset is going to be 2. For the first div, we are going to give it a class name of avatar and cursor pointer. Let's make it in the center, margin bottom of 5. Tooltip class name, and for data tip, we will give it a text of click to regenerate a new avatar. And as you can see, when we hover on it, we can see the tooltip. In here, we have to get avatar ID and set avatar ID to change our avatar when it's clicked. So go to the form component. Form component should be a client component, so in top of the file, write use client. And then we will define a use state hook. We will say const brackets avatar ID and set avatar ID. And for the value of state, we want it to be random number, so say math.random multiplied by 20, and we will fix it to the lower number. Go to the avatar and pass it as props. Then go back to avatar.tsx file and we will set the types of incoming props to avatar props. Go back to the types and change ID to avatar ID and set ID to set avatar ID. Let's go back, and as you can see, we are using template literals and pass the avatar ID. Then for the div, give it an on-click handler and set avatar ID. Copy and paste state, and as you can see, when we click on it, it doesn't work. So write use client on top of the avatar.tsx file, and now it works correctly. Okay, now let's go back to form and create a login button. On the bottom of the form, it should say login. Give the form an onSubmit handler and give it the function of handle submit. We will pass the handle submit, the event handler, as an argument. And now go to the lib folder and create a new file called features.ts. Export an async function called handle submit because it's going to be an asynchronous function. We are going to submit our data to our database. First, prevent the default behavior of form submission. Then go back and import handle submit. Then we will say const router equals to use router, and it's coming from next/navigation. Let's pass it as an argument to the handle submit function. So when it's submitted, it is going to push our routes to the chat page. Go back to features file and specify the router, and the router type is router instance of Next.js or React. So let's see. Yep, it's app router instance. Now let's define try and catch blocks. We are going to catch errors when without button and show it inside the console. So write console.log error. Go to the next config, and we are going to integrate Express with Next.js. So we will say async rewrite return our path to be all the paths. And destination will be localhost 4000. Now we need to run our dev environment because we had a change on our next config.js file. Then let's go to MongoDB website. And sign in to your MongoDB account or create new one. Then we will create a new project, give it a Telegram name. Click on next, then click on create project. Then choose the best region that suits you. Give your cluster a name. I will give it a Chatgram. Create a new user. I will give it username of Ali, password of Ali1234. Add your IP address and then submit. Go to Network Access tab and let's allow all the IP addresses to connect to our database. Click on Connect, Drivers, and copy MongoDB URL. Let's close the pages and create an Mongo URL in our environment file server folder and give it a chatgram messages, or no, let's give it a chatgram users. Go to the index file and let's import messages from Mongoose. Then we will initialize our MongoDB. So write mongoose.connect and as a value process.env Mongo URL. Let's give it an exclamation mark on the end because it's not going to be undefined. Then create a const db equals to mongoose.connection. Then we have to console log the errors and show them into our console. So write db.onError, console.error bind console and the error message. Then say db.once, open, and inside the callback function we will console.log connected to MongoDB, and then we will move our Node.js server inside the callback function. So first we connect to our database, then we run the server. Look, we have an error. We have not set our MongoDB password, I think. So let's go back to the environment file and set our password Ali1234. Let's try again, and we can see it first logs connected to MongoDB and logs localhost 4000 then. Create a new file called userroutes.ts. This is where we store our routes. So first let's import request, response, and router from Express. Then we will initialize our router, so write const router equals to router. And in next line we are going to say router.post method path is going to be /auth. Then we will get request and response instances, create another new file and name it usermodel.ts. This is where we are going to create our user schema. So first import mongoose from mongoose. Then in bottom line say const user schema equals new mongoose schema. And we are going to pass our keys here. We have the name key that is going to be string, image ID of a string, email is going to be type of a string, and it's going to be unique. Then we have the messages array. And the message array has the object in it that has keys like message, that is going to be string, sender is going to be string, receiver is going to be string, and time is going to be type of date. Now let's export our schema. So write export const user equals mongoose.model, and for the first argument pass the user, and then we will say user schema, and for the third argument we will say collection name chatgram users. Go back to user routes and import user from user model, and then let's export default all of our routes. So on bottom of the file write export default router. Then go to the index.ts file and we are going to define it as a middleware. So write app.use path is going to be the index of our page, and set the second argument to user router, and it's coming from user routes. Let's go back to user routes, and this authentication route is going to be asynchronous. Then we want to push the user to MongoDB. So write const user equals new user, and for the value pass it request.body. We are getting it from login4. Then create try and catch blocks. In try block write await user.save to save our user, and then we will send the user on response. Then in the catch block write a catch block, and we are going to console.log our error if we had one. Then let's go to the fetchers.ts file located in a lib folder. In a try block, write await fetch and the path is auth. And for options, method is going to be post, body of JSON.stringify, and inside here we will pass three parameters: the name, email, and the image ID. And the value of name and email, we are getting it from the form event, and image ID is going to be template literals, robohash, HTTPS robohash, and what we get from avatar ID argument from handle submit function. Then let's set avatar ID as an argument. Let's close the open tabs that we don't need and go to the form.tsx file and pass the avatar ID as an argument to handle submit function. Go back to features and set the type to string. Next, pass the options key of headers and content type is going to be application.json. Then in the try block, after we posted our data, we will push our user to the chat page. So write router.push and path is going to be /chat. Next, in the app folder, create a new folder called chat, and inside that folder, create a page.tsx file and write rfce. Now let's go back to MongoDB website to browse our collections. For now, we have the chatgram users collection and it's empty. Let's go to the server folder now and in index.ts file, and let's create a new middleware express.json. Then refresh MongoDB website, and now let's head back to localhost 3000 and select the avatar you want. The username is codewithali, and for the email, codewithali@me.com. Then we can see it pushed us to the chat page and we got our user in MongoDB. Let's go to the VS Code, close all the open tabs, and in user routes.ts, we will create a new route to get all the users. So write router.get, path is going to be /users, and this route is going to be asynchronous. Then we get the request and response and set the types to. Then we are going to create a try and catch block. So in the try block, write const user equals user.find, and we want all the users, so empty square brackets. Then send the user from the response instance and catch error if we add one. Close user routes and go to the client folder app and chat folder, open page.tsx. Here we are going to give the div class name of background, background of blue, 500, min height of the screen, and as you can see we have the full width and height. So now let's delete the background color, then create another div inside that div and give it a class name of margin x of auto, so it's centered, and display of flex. We have two components, sidebar component and messages component. Let's create the component of sidebar first. Go to component folder, create a new folder called sidebar. In sidebar folder, create a new file called sidebar.tsx. rfce, and go to the page.tsx in the chat folder and import the sidebar so we can see the changes. Create a new div inside and give it a class name of width of full in medium-sized devices. We are going to display it as block and give it a custom class name of sidebar. Z index of 10, border of right should be 2 pixels, border slate 400, and in medium-sized devices width is going to be half of the screen. And in large devices width is 1 out of 3, and padding of 3, background of white, height of screen. And this sidebar is going to be a client component, so on the top of the file write use client. Then let's write useEffect to fetch my data, the signed in user. So inside the useEffect, write a function called fetch user. that we will import it from fetchers file for now. Let's create const cookie and set cookie, and this is coming from use cookies package that we have installed. Go to the server folder, use a routes.ts file, and inside the auth path in the try block, and we are going to send cookies when we posted user, so write res.set headers, and for the first argument is set cookie, and second argument is going to be template literals that say user equals to access token. We will get access token from, and path is going to be the index path. Then let's create access token. So write const access token equals jwt.sign, and we will sign the user. Let's first import jwt from JSON web token. And transform. Then we are going to transform user to object. And for the second argument, we are going to get process.environmentFile.accessToken secret. Go to process.environmentFile and create access token secret key and give it a value, any value you want. Now we have the access token. Go and comment out fetch users. Now we will get the user cookie. Okay, so if we restart localhost 3000 and give it the name of Ali, email of ali@me.com, and now in the application cookies part we should have the user's key cookie, but we don't. Let's refresh our database and we don't have it here too. So it looks like we have an error in index.ts file. It seems that we need to install the JSON web token types. Restart the development server. Once this is done, we should have the cookie available. Next, let's navigate to this. Next, let's refresh and try again, and now we got the cookie. Let's navigate to sidebar.tsx file and uncomment the fetch user. We can pass the cookie as an argument to fetch user function. Then go to fetchers.ts file. And in fetchers file, export an async function called fetch user. And import cookie as an argument. I think the type of cookie is with string. No, it's not. Let's for now give it a type of any. Now we are in fetchers.ts and we are going to access the access token from cookies.user. The response. From the response, then we will use the fetch function to fetch the user from our localhost on port 4000. The method for this fetch request will be get. And the header will include the authorization. We will pass the access token to it. And then we will declare const user equals to response.json. First, navigate to the source folder and create a new folder called store. Inside this folder, create a new file called userstore.ts. In this file, import create from Zustand. Next, create a constant named useUser and assign it to create. The type of useUser should be user state. Finally, we have the setter function, then declare key of my user with value of undefined. And next, define set user key, and it's going to get the user and set my user to it. This is how easy working with Zustand is. Now we will go inside sidebar.tsx. And we are going to import our user and set user. So write const my user, then set user in square brackets, and they are coming from use user. And in the end, we will use shallow copy. This is coming from Zustand/shallow. In the fetch user function, add another argument called set user. At the bottom of the function, set the user variable to the value we receive from the fetch API. The value will be the first element in the user's array, so we can access it using users brackets 0. Then go back to the servers folder, user routes.ts, and copy the user's route, then paste it and replace it with user. Then delete all the things inside, and then we will say const data equals await jwt dot verify, and for the value pass request.headers.authorization, and for the second argument pass access token secret that we got from environment file. Because they are not undefined, give them exclamation mark on the end. Then we have to initialize try and catch blocks. So the try one, write const user equals await user.find, and we are finding it by email. Email equals data.email. Let's replace import JWT with require JWT. Then in the catch block, we will log error when we have one.
And Harry Quinn. Hello. Both. Great hat.
Go back to the try block and we will send the user when we get them. Let's go back to the sidebar.tsx and log my user. Let's test it out. Let's delete the cookies first. And give the name of Telegram and email of telegram@me.com. And we got the user cookie, but the console is undefined for now. But if we log one more time, we got it inside our console. Now, inside of the sidebar.tsx file, we are going to have the search bar component, chat list component. We're going to have two components, sidebar, search bar component and chat list component. First, let's create the search bar component inside sidebar folder, searchbar.tsx. Write RFCE, then import the search bar into sidebar. Give the search bar user props, and for the value, give it my user. Let's close the tabs. Go to the searchbar.tsx and import the user prop, and its type is going to be user props. Then give the div tag class name of flex, gap of 4, and inside the div, create another div with class name of avatar. And online. And create another div with class name of width of 12, rounded off full, and ring. Then import the image tag from Next. Width of 256, height of 256, and source is coming from user.imageID. And if we didn't have one, it's going to be an empty string. It looks everything is worked correctly. So now let's create our search input. Create a div with a class name of relative, width of full, then specify the input tag with type of text, placeholder of search with class name of input, padding left of 12, rounded full, input bordered, and this is going to be width of full. And set the background gray 100. Placeholder is going to have the text of gray 500. Then we will have the search icon that is coming from the utils icon. So I think we will get the class names if we import it. No, we don't. So let's first copy the class names. Copy the class names from the switchy and delete it from there and wrap the search icon inside the div tag. And give the div class name of what we had there. And you can see it's working correctly, and it's fully responsive on mobile devices and large devices. Let's close the tab and we are going to create chat list component. So create a new file called chatlist.tsx. Then write RFCE and then import it inside sidebar.tsx file so we can see the changes. And we are going to say when we got the user, my user, then we are going to show the chat list. If we don't have my user, we are not going to show the chat list. Keep the chat list prop of myself and its value is going to be my user. Go to the chatlist.tsx file and import the prop, myself. And the type is going to be user props. Then create a UL tag. Give the class name of margin of 5, flex column. Then inside the list, we have the chat item component. So for now, let's create a use effect because it's a client component and we are going to fetch the users. So on top of the file, write use client, and inside the user effect, we are going to have the function fetch users. And as an argument, we will pass it myself. So we will filter myself out and all the users. Go to the store, user store. User store.ts. And copy and paste it. Change to use all users. And change my user to users. And change set my user to set users. Let's delete the type and pass it any for now. And let's go to fetchers.ts. And export an async function called fetch users. Here we have two arguments, myself and set users. Next, copy and paste use user from sidebar component to chatlist component. And change it to use all users and change the variables to users and set users. And import fetch users. Then inside your function fetch user, we are going to fetch users. So write const data equals, let's first define the types. Myself is user props and set users will be any for now. Const data await fetch. Path is going to be /users. Then we are going to turn this to JSON. So write const my users equals to await data.json. Then we are going to set users and we are going to filter out my user. My user.email shouldn't be equal to myself.email. So we are filtering out myself. Then let's go to the chatlist file and log users, and as you can see, we got the user array. So let's delete the console.log and create a new file called chatitem.tsx. Write RFCE, then import it in chatlist.tsx. First, we need to use square brackets here because we are going to map through our users if we had users, and if we don't, we are going to have a small loading. So for the loading part, create a span, and the span has a class name of loading. Let's give it something chatlist. First import chatlist. Chat item. Sorry, it's chat item. Give the span class name of loading ring, and width of 16. Let's reload the localhost. Now let's go to the chat item.tsx. and create a fragment for now. And inside the fragment we have a list tag with class name of flex, gap of 3, cursor pointer, and in hover background should be slate 300, padding of 5, rounded of large, and inside the D inside we have the div tag of avatar, and inside the avatar tag we have the div with class name of bitfog 14, rounded of full, ring primary, and ring offset base is going to be 100. And ring offset is going to be 2. Then we have the image component of Next.js, and the source is coming from the user, and the user is coming from prop that has been passed by chatlist.tsx. Go to the chat list. We are going to map through our users, so write users dot reverse and then map, because we want to get the latest signed in user. Pass the chat item the user prop, and for the value it's going to be user, and give it the key of user ID. As you can see, we have 3 users now. Let's give it a question mark, so if it's undefined it doesn't return an error. Go back, and image source will be user.imageID, or it's going to be an empty string. Width is going to be 256, height is going to be 256, alternative text is avatar. As you can see, it's working correctly. And on the bottom of the div tag we are going to have another div with class name of flex column, justify between, that is going to be our name and the message that are going to be shown when we are logged in. So for the name we are going to have an h3 tag with class name of font semi-bold, text black and text large. And the value is going to be user.name. Then we have a p tag with class name of text, color of costume color, hashtag 7991, and user has joined. Bottom of the list tag we create another div with class name of divider and margin y of 0. So we don't have any margin top or bottom. And we have a nice divider now. So let's go back to the VS Code and let's close all the tabs. Now that we are open up the chat folder, page.tsx file, now we should create the message component. So go to the components folder, create a new folder called chat threads, and inside that create a new file called messages.tsx rfce, and then go to page.tsx and import it so we can see the changes. Then give the div class name of background image, give the custom class name of messages, width of full, mean height of screen, and z-index of 0. It is going to be hidden in small devices. In medium devices it is going to be width of half of the screen, and in large devices it's going to have width of 2 out of 3. In medium size it's going to be flex and flex column. Then we have top bar component. and two more components inside this div called messages list and messages input. So go to sidebar folder, chat item.tsx, and this is a client component, so write use client on top of it. Then define an onClick handler and pass it handleClick function. Create a function called handleClick, and we are going to say document.querySelector, our custom class name .messages .class names class list, and we are going to remove the hidden class name from it, and we can see it is working. It is showing our messages component. Then let's copy and paste it again, change the remove to add and flex and add flex class, then copy and paste it again, and selector is our custom class name called sidebar, add hidden class name to it. So when we click on a user, it will hide the sidebar in small devices, and it's working correctly. Then go to the store and create a new store called use selected user. So write export const user selected use selected user equals create with type of selected user state. Then we got the setter function, and selected user is going to be undefined, and set selected user, we got a function that gets the user, and we are going to set it to the selected user. Set selected user to user. Let's go back to chat item.tsx file, and we are going to import, so let's set selected user from use selected user. Then on the end of the handleClick function, we are going to set selected user to the user. We are getting it as a prop. Then we are going to add selected user class name to the allied. So writing .current target .classList.add selected user. And before adding it, we are going to remove it from any other one that has this class name. Then go to global.css file, and we are going to create the selected user class name. Apply background state of 300 to it, and as you can see, when we click on an item, let's click. As we click on an item, it applies the background state. Now let's close the tabs. And go to the message.tsx file. And then we are going to create a top bar component. But let's resize our screen so we can see both the code and tabs. Now we are going to create the top bar and write RFC, then import it inside the message.tsx file. And message will be a client component, so write use client on top of the file. And we are going to import the selected user from use selected user store. And then we are going to pass the selected user as a prop to top bar. Then go to topbar.tsx and import props and give it a type of user props. Delete a div. Create a new div, give it a class name of background of white, and we will wrap it in a template literal, and we are going to say when we have a selected user, show empty string, and if we don't have it in medium size, make it hidden. Then create another div and give it a class name of width of full, padding x of 10, padding y of 3, flex justify between item center and create another div inside that div. Give it a class name of flex. And gap of 3. Top bar is going to be a client component, so write use client on top of the file. Then create the button tag inside the last div. And inside the button, import flash icon. Then give the button on click handler and give the function called, create a function called handle click. And we are going to say document.querySelector.messages.classList.add hidden. When it's clicked, copy and paste it in bottom line. And change the messages to sidebar and change add to remove. So when we click on the button, it will hide the messages page and shows us sidebar. And this functionality is just for small devices. Now we're going to test it out and it's working, but we don't need button in medium and large devices. So give the button class name of medium hidden. Then create another div below of the button tag. And give it a class name of avatar, margin left of 3 and cursor pointer. Then create another div inside that div and give it a class name of width of 12, rounded of full, ring primary, ring offset base is going to be 100 and ring offset is going to be 2. Then import the image component from Next.js and give it a source of selected user.imageID, or it's going to be an empty string if we don't have image ID. Then give it a width of 256, height of 256 and alternative text of avatar. Then on bottom of the avatar div, create a new div and give it a class name of flex. Flex column justify between, create h3 tag inside that div and it's going to show the selected user name. So give it a class name of font semi-bold, text of black, and text is going to be medium size and the value is going to be selected user.name. Then create a p tag with class name of text and it's going to be our custom color 7799-1 and we are going to say online. Then we are going to have our call button component. So create a new component inside chat threads folder called callbtn.tsx. Write RFCE and change the div to button tag. And inside that, import the phone icon from the utils icons.tsx. Then go back to top bar and import callbtn so we can see the changes. Then let's go to messages.tsx file and give the div class name equals template literals, class name of max width of small. In medium sized devices, max width is going to be 3XL and width of full and margin XL bottom and margin bottom of 10. And we are going to say if we had selected user, it's going to be an empty string. If we don't, in medium sized devices, it's going to be hidden. Then we are going to create message messages list component. So create a new file called messageslist.tsx and write RFC, then go to messages and import messages list so we can see the changes. Go back to messages list component. This component is a client component, so on top of the file, write use client. And we are going to define use effect. Inside the use effect, we are going to fetch our messages. So write function called fetch messages. This fetch messages function is coming from lib folder fetchers.ts file. Go to fetchers file and create a new asynchronous function called fetch messages. Then go to messageslist.tsx, import the function, and we have 3 arguments: sender, receiver, and set messages. Go to messageslist.tsx, give the arguments, then let's define the sender. Sender is myself, so write use user and state.myuser. Then define the receiver is going to be selected user, state.selected user. And we have set the set messages, so go to store, user store.ts, and export const use messages, and create a new store. We have the key of messages of undefined, and set messages, we are going to get the message and we are going to set message to messages. We can delete because we have 2 parameters that are same. Go to messageslist.tsx and let's import both of our messages and set messages. And they are coming from use messages store. Pass receiver. Then we are going to pass the receiver as a use effect dependency. So when selected user changes, we want to fetch messages. Then go to fetchers.ts file, and we are going to say if we had both the sender and the receiver, we are going to have try and catch blocks. So in the catch block, we are going to log the error and set messages to null. In a try block, we are going to fetch messages, so say const response await fetch, and we are going to fetch messages from the path of messages, and it has 2 queries of sender and receiver. So give it the sender.email, and then we have the receiver equals to receiver.email. Then create a constant variable called data. Equals to await response.json. And then we are going to set messages to data. Let's close the tabs. And go to server folder user routes.ts. And we are going to create a new get route. So say router.get path is going to be messages, and this route is going to be asynchronous. Define the types of request and response. router, we will destructure sender and receiver from request.queryUp. Then we are going to define a constant variable called user, and we are going to say await user.find, and we are going to find the user by email. Then we are going to define another constant variable called filtered user. This is going to filter messages by the users of sender and receiver. So write user.filter, and then we have the condition of sender equals to message.sender and receiver equals to message.receiver, and switch the values. Then we are going to send our filtered user as a response. So go to messages. After that, go to messages list.tsx. And we are going to define a constant variable called parent. And we are going to use AutoAnimate from FormKit AutoAnimate, and it's going to be React, not Vue. And create a reference to parent, and the div class name of width of full, margin bottom of 10, flex direction will be column, max height of 75 VH, and overflow of auto. And then give it a custom class name of no scroll bar. Let's define a no scroll bar class name. So go to globals.css and define a class name .no scroll bar, and give it a ms overflow style is going to be none. Scroll bar width is going to be none. So we are not showing the scroll bar, but we have the functionality to scroll. Then define WebKit scroll bar, and display is going to be none. Then head back to messages list.tsx, and inside the div we have square brackets, and we are going to say if we had the messages, we are going to map through. So messages.map, we have the item and the index. We are going to return a div if we don't have anything. We are going to return an empty string for the div tag. Give it a key prop, and the key is going to be index of the item. But besides of the div, message item should be here in chat threads folder. Create a new file called messages.tsx, write rfce, and then we can import it inside messages.tsx so we can see the changes. Pass it the key, and key is going to be our index. Go to messages item, import two prop called user and message. User is going to be boolean or undefined. Message is going to be type of a string or undefined. Give the div template literals and give the class name of chat. And when we have the user, chat is going to be in the end of the screen, and if we don't, it is going to be in the start of the screen. Then create another div with the class name of chat bubble, and if we had the user, color is going to be chat bubble, and if we don't, it's going to be chat bubble primary. The user is myself or the selected user. If it's going to be me on the end if selected user is going to be on the start. Give the message item the props of the user and messages. Give the user value of condition. We say if sender.email equals to item.sender, return true, else return false. Give the message value of item.message. Now we don't have any messages, so let's close all the tabs and we are going to create message input. Create a new file called messageinput.tsx and write rfce and then go to messages and import message input. Change the div to the form tag. And create another div inside the form tag, and inside the div we have the input of type of text, and the value is going to be input value coming from useState hook. So let's define a useState const input value and set input value equals to useState, and the message input is going to be a client component, so define use client on top of the file. And for the value of the input, set input value, and we are going to say unchanged. We have the event handler and set input value to e.target.value. As you can see, it's working correctly. Give it a placeholder of message and class name of input width of full, padding left of 14, input bordered. Give the form, class name of margin top of auto, give it a position of relative. Then give the div class name of width of full, and it's going to be relative to. Then below of the div tag, create a button tag. With type of button, so it's not submitting or our form. Then inside the button we have the smile face icon. So when we click on the smile face icon, we will open or close our emoji picker. Then give the class name of absolute, top 1 out of 2, left of 5, and minus translate of y is going to be half, so it is centered correctly on the left side of our input. Then below the button tag, create a new button with the type of submit. And inside that, import send messages icon. And then give the button class name of absolute, top half, right is going to be 5, and minus translate y is going to be half. And it is centered on the right side of the input. Then our positioning is not working, so let's go to messages.tsx file. We have a problem here in the class names. Give the div class name of margin top of auto. Now it's on the bottom of our page. So go back and give the use state type of the string, so the error will disappear. Then we are going to have another use state, show emoji and set show emoji. and the default value is going to be false, and for the type it's going to be boolean. After this smile face icon button tag, create the square brackets and we are going to say if show emojis is true, then show this our picker. If it's not, then don't show it. Then create another div with a class name of absolute, bottom of full. Const picker. And we are going to import the picker with dynamic from next dynamic because it's not going to be on server side rendering, it's going to be false. Then define the picker element inside the div. Now give the smile face button icon onClick handler. And we are going to say set show emojis to opposite of the state value. And you can see emoji picker is working correctly. Then go to the picker element and give it an emoji click handler. And we are going to set it to on emoji click function, create a new function called on emoji click, and it has an argument of emoji object. Then inside the function, we are going to set the input value to previous value plus emoji object dot emoji. Give the emoji object the type of string. Let's see what's the problem. Let's make it undefined. Yep, we didn't define a string in use state. So it's working now. For the form tag, create an on submit handler. Create a new function called handle submit. And first we are going to prevent the default behavior of form submission. Then we are going to set the input value to empty string when we have submitted the form. And as you can see, it's working correctly. Close the tabs. And go to the server folder. Index.ts file, we are going to initialize our socket. So first import server from socket.io. And create a constant variable called io equals the new server, and first argument will be our Node.js server. Then we are going to pass course origin of HTTP localhost 3000 because we are working on localhost 3000. And then we are going to say io.onConnection. We are getting the socket back and the most of the job is in here. So we are going to say socket.on private message, we have 3 arguments of to, message, and myself. To is the selected user. Then we are going to say const user equals to await user.find, and we are going to find the user by email. Then we create a new constant variable called decoded, and we are going to decode myself argument. We are getting from the client, so write jwt.verify myself and process.environment.access token secret. Let's import JWT from JSON web token. And give it an exclamation mark on the end so it's not undefined. And then create new const sender equals to await user.find by ID decoded value. We are finding myself. Then we are going to say io.sockets, and we are going to emit, refresh, and say we have a new message. Then we are going to say if we had user, we are going to push our message to database. So write user, first index.messages.push, and we are going to push the receiver user.email message is going to be message, and sender is going to be sender.email. And time is going to be new date. Then say await user 0index.save. And await again, and sender.save. We are going to save it before this myself and the sender. Copy and paste the push method again and change the user to sender. Now we should be able to get the post and post the message. So message input.tsx. And before handle submit function, write a constant variable called socket. And import IO from socket.io client and paste the value HTTP localhost 4000. Then inside the handle submit function, say socket.emit private message, and we are going to have 3 values of emit. First, let's define selected user and myself, and the third value is going to be the input value. Myself is coming from the cookies, so say const cookie and set cookie equals to use cookies user, and pass the cookie to the third argument of emit. Now we should be able to see our message. So open up a new browser. And Let's sign in with the username is going to be JavaScript and the email is going to be js@me.com. We have them now. Let's send message hello with an emoji. Now we cannot see it in real time because we haven't set functionality in our clients, but when we change the user, we can see the messages. So let's make it in real time. Go to messages.tsx. And on top of the useEffect, say const socket equals to IO HTTP localhost 4000. And then we are going to say socket.onRefresh. So if we get a new message, we are going to fetch messages with the same arguments. So now let's test it out. Let's refresh our page. And let's see, send a message. And it's not working. Let's refresh again. And it is working now. Go back to VS Code, close messagelist.tsx, and go to the server folder index.ts file. Then we are going to declare the socket.on joined. So when we got a new user, we are going to refresh our list. We are going to say socket.on joined data io.sockets, and we are going to emit new user. Let's go to the sidebar folder chatlist.tsx file, and the top of the file useEffect declare a constant variable socket.io. It's going to be HTTP localhost 4000, and don't forget to import IO from socket.io client. Next, we are going to say socket.on new user. We are going to fetch users and set user myself. Then we are going to wrap the socket inside and useEffect. Then go to the form.tsx file. And say const socket equals to IO HTTP localhost 4000. Import the IO from socket.io client. And pass it as a fourth argument to handle submit function. Now we are going to import the argument and set it to any for now. And inside the handle submit function, say socket.emit joined, and we are going to say new user has joined. Let's test it out. Now we should get the user. Let's set the username to chatgram and the email to chatgram@me.com. Looks like we have an error. I think we know where the error is. But let's first in the form.tsx file say const cookie, use cookies, and user. And inside the use effect, we are going to say if we add a cookie, push us to the chat page. And pass cookie.user as a use effect dependency. Now let's solve the error we got earlier. So go to the chatlist.tsx file, and we should switch the places of myself and set users. Let's delete the cookies. And refresh the page and go to localhost 3000. And we should get our user in real time for now. Username is going to be Naruto, email is going to be naruto@me.com. And click on login, as you can see we got the user in real time. Send a message to Naruto and we can see we have the messages in real time too. Now we are going to set the functionality of calling button. But first, let's define a nice loading for our pages. So create a new file called loading.tsx. Then in the root of the component folder, create a new file called telegram loading.tsx. RFCE, and it's going to be a client component. So write use client on top of the file. Then we are going to import Lottie from Lottie React, and we are going to set the animation data to load the loader from telegram.json of our assets folder. Animation data is going to value is loader and loop is going to be true. Go to loading.tsx file. And write RFCE and import telegram loading from components telegram loading. Wrap it inside a div, give the div class name of mean height of the screen, width of full, and flex justify center, item center. So it's going to be on center of the screen. Next, we are going to keep the functionality of our calling button. Go to the Livekit website, sign in, and create a new project. We will give it a name of Telegram clone. Then fill out this form and click on Next. Then go to the documentation of Livekit, select Next version 13. And the first step is to install Livekit SDK. So copy and open up a new terminal, change the direction to client, and paste it here. Click enter. We will wait until all the dependencies have been installed successfully. Next step is the keys and configurations. Click on the rebuild Then copy them and in the root of the client folder, create an environment file.local and paste them here. Next, we are going to create a route in API folder in the specified direction. Copy the code from here and paste it down in a route.ts file. Next, make a room folder inside the chat folder. So go to the app folder, chat folder, and create a new folder called room. And create a new file called page.tsx, and let's just copy the code from the documentation and paste it in page.tsx file. Then we are going to import room audio renderer, control bar from Livekit components. Next, we have to import use tracks and track. Now on top of the file, declare a constant variable called myUser and it's from state.myUser. And set name value to be myuser.name. We have a JWT error. Let's rerun our server and see if we got that again. No, we don't. Now go to localhost 3000. And let's refresh our pages. Then go to the components, chat threads, and call btn.tsx. It is a client component, so write use client on top of the file. Then say const router equals to use router and const socket equals to IO HTTP localhost 4000. Import IO from the socket.io client and we are going to say const cookie equals to use cookies user. And then we have the selected user, so say const selected user equals to use selected user, user state dot selected user. Then we have my user, const my user equals to use user state dot my user. Give the button tag on click handler and function of handle click, create a function called handle click, and we are going to say socket.emit private message, and the first argument is selected user.email. Then we have the value that phone emoji plus my user.name plus the text is calling plus the selected user.name plus another phone emoji. And the third argument is going to be cookie.user. So go back to the browser. When we hit on the call button, we go and send a new message that say, for example, Brad called Naruto, and we see Naruto is calling, Brad is working, and in the end we are going to push our user to /chat /room. So let's do it, and we can say, see, Brad is calling Naruto, it is getting the token, and we have an error here. Let's go to page.tsx file in the room folder. And I think we have misimported useTracks. useTracks should be imported from Livekit components React. Now I think everything works correctly. Let's do this again. And we can see it pushes us to the room page, and we can share audio, our screen, or other things. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Bye.